You finished your first module, right? We went through the first talk, right?
Yes.
Talk 2, talk 3, and then talk 4, and then that really ended your talk 4, repentance and faith. Really ended your first module, and I honor each and every one of you for getting this far in the journey. So for talk number 1, so really module 1 was about the basic foundation of our faith, as you may now have appreciated. We started with studying God's love and how much He loves us, that He gave His only Son for us, Jesus Christ. And so then it was followed by talk number 2, which we got to know Jesus Christ, who Jesus Christ really is to us, and we were able to define that a little bit better. And then we went on to, now that we know Jesus Christ, how do we, as people of Christ, be really acting out as Christians? We defined what it really means to be a true Christian. And then just 2 weeks ago, we went into repentance and faith, because really as we move forward now into really defining ourselves, redefining our lives as true Christians, we really can't get away from being repentant and being faithful into the covenant that we have in our faith. And so that was really first module, and you came back. You came back for second module. Why? Can I just have one maybe or two from maybe the couples that were participating in? Why are you here? Why are you back? Can I hear a little bit? Just a little bit.
Do you want more?
You want more? That's a good answer. We definitely got more. What else? How about the other one?
I love the lecture that we can hear.
You love what you hear? What else?
The Roscaldo is really good.
We do provide food, right? Well, thank you, and I honor you. That was really the recap of our first module, because going into our second module, now it's going to be talks 5 through 8. We are going to be talking about our response, right? Now that we kind of revisited, it doesn't even matter what levels of faith you're in. Now that we've revisited the basic foundation of our faith, it's really time to really kind of start looking at, okay, so now that we know all that, and some of us may have even studied that all our lives, but how do we now go back into responding to that, responding to the basic foundations of our faith? And really it starts with 2 talks, and I'm going to do both tonight in one. So hopefully it's not going to be any longer than any of the previous talks you've had. But talks 5 and 6, they really are very much related to each other, and it is the ideals of loving God and loving our neighbor. So really, hopefully, tonight I'm hoping that I may be able to explain the meaning of loving God, and to really how to live it out by responding to that love and showing that love to God through loving our neighbor. So, anybody here have goals? Goals? You guys set goals for yourself, goals for the day, maybe for the next 5 years, right? Everybody sets goals, and so because somewhat goals are important to us, right? Whether it's short-term goals or long-term goals, right? We get that question a lot when we interview for a job, or when we're setting goals for our families. We talk about it as husband and wife. When we have goals, we'd like to really that goal to guide us, right? As we move forward in our everyday lives. And really, that's the main thing. We're hoping that our goals will guide and direct our behaviors, right? So somewhat, it becomes our ideal in life, don't you think? It influences us, it directs our lives. So whether it be a goal related to accumulating a lot of money, that's a goal, right? Or perhaps accumulating more possessions in life. That's a goal, right? Or maybe attaining a high position in our jobs, in our careers, right? What else? Maybe achieve a considerable amount of fame. I mean, that's a goal, right? Those are definitive goals. I remember when I was maybe in my late teens, early 20s, my goals were pretty simple. Maybe it was to finish college, right? To find a good job, good enough job that will keep me stable. To find a good husband, and maybe have a family. And so we can live our lives pursuing good goals and lofty ideals, such as just those ones that I mentioned. like we can have a goal to advance in our careers, providing better for the family. Those are all good goals, right? They're measurable. We can even aim to perhaps contribute to reducing criminality, right? Crimes, or eradicating poverty. Those are good goals, right? Again, those are all great goals, but somehow if loving God, or if God is not the center of those goals to direct how we're going to move forward with those goals, somehow it just falls a little short, right? Because as Christians, loving God should be our highest ideal. So above everything else, above even the good things that I mentioned, right? About reducing crime, maybe eradicating poverty, providing better for our family, taking our kids, giving our kids the best education we could ever provide. Those are good goals. But then again, this is saying loving God should be our highest ordeal. And that could be found in Mark chapter 12, verses 28 through 30. It says, when one of the scribes, when he came forward and heard them disputing and saw how well he had answered them, he asked him, "Which is the first of all commandments?" Jesus replied, "The first is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength." Again, with your heart, with your soul, with your mind, and your strength. And so we're going to talk about each one of that a little bit tonight. But before we can talk about that, perhaps we need to understand, so when we love, what do we normally think about when we think of love? Like, what's the first thing that comes into our mind when we think of love? Maybe the heart, the shape of a heart. We see that a lot on Valentine's Day when we talk about love, right? Again, but we need to understand what heart truly means, right? The biblical understanding of heart is that it's the seat of intelligence and decisions. In modern English, it will be equivalent to our mind, our will. It's really the symbol of the core of our beings. And so it includes not only our intelligent thought, but it also includes our will, right? What dictates us to do something or not do something, as well as the feelings or emotions that we have. I remember, again, feelings, right? So love, feelings. I remember when I first met Jeff, I didn't really like him. He had long hair, which I never liked. He was wearing plaid flannel shirts every day. He's still wearing plaid. There were those things that were not initially my type, if you were to define something.
He is?
And then we became friends. We have become friends. And then I slowly started thinking to myself, the more I got to know him, I was slowly becoming really interested with, oh yeah, he's nice. He's nice. He's got long hair, but he's nice. He wears plaid, but he's very smart. I remember, we would spend a long time in the library. I was waiting. I didn't have my own car at that time, and I would see him in the library. That would be his permanent place. Like, I could go to the library any day and he'll be there. Whereas I could be in the cafeteria, some other time. But and he would ask me to review his paper. Like, I think it's for humanities class, and he'll make me read it while I was waiting for my ride to pick me up. My sister picks me up every time, and then I would really see a lot of intelligence, a lot of grammar corrections, but it was full of wisdom. It was really full of wisdom, and now and we became, really good friends until our first date, perhaps, and really getting to know each other. I've come to appreciate his humility, his love for his family, his love for his parents, his hard work. And then eventually, I was truly able to see past the flannel shirt, past the long hair, and he did cut his hair eventually when he started pursuing. But really, it's beyond that really, as we got to know each other, our friendship got deeper. And it was truly when, and then we dated for 6 years. It was through college, and it was a challenging time because we were both working full time as well. And so just being able to kind of inspire each other through that kind of life where we're both working and going to school full time, we were able to help each other a lot and encourage a lot in that time. And so at that time, after 6 years of dating, we were truly able to confirm that we were ready to make that commitment and get married. And so then he proposed and we got married. But then again, the most important part of that story is not so much about his lashes or his long hair. Every time I mention that in any talk, they'll be like, "Do you have any pictures of that?" but really, the commitment to love and take it to the next level is what really I was talking about as I'm talking about our heart and what love is, and really that it's not just merely feelings. Because if it was just feeling like I don't like his hair or I don't like the way he dresses, I mean that can come and go. I mean he could have been like short hair then, or he could be the most well-dressed man, and maybe I still wouldn't like him initially until I got to know him. I don't know. But then again, that's what I'm exactly talking about. The commitment, and we make that commitment after after things have gone deeper. We've gotten to know the person better, that kind of thing. In one of Pope Benedict's encyclicals, he said, "Love is not merely a sentiment, because sentiments come and go. A sentiment can be marvelous at first part, but it is not the fullness of love. It is characteristic of mature love that it calls into play all man's potentials. It engages the whole man. But this process is always open-ended. Love is never finished and complete. Throughout life, it changes and matures, and thus remains faithful to itself." And isn't that true? I mean, most of us are married couples here. Isn't it true that even with your spouse now, it's not finished, right? It's open-ended, because even now we continue to discover something about our spouse. Even now we continue to go past some of the things that we may not like or we may not necessarily prefer. But we work through those things now and really make that commitment to stay married to that person and continue to love. And then it matures and it continues to be open-ended that way. And isn't that beautiful about our marriages? So to love God really with all our heart really means to be totally committed to Him. Same thing as how I described it in our marriages. Again, has anybody heard the word bae? It's like a term these days for young people. I felt so uncool the first time I heard it. Bae, B-A-E. I heard it from my nephew who's 20 years old, so maybe that's why. Anyway, he said, "Oh, I really love my bae." And I said, "What's bae?" And then he said, "Before anything else, Auntie Michael." I said, "What does that mean?" "She's my before anything else." I'm like, "Really? That's the new term of endearment now, right? So before anything else." And I felt so uncool hearing that. Again, the no children kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. But then that's interesting, right? So that's how he thinks. As a teenager with his girlfriend of, I think, going on 2 years now, that he thinks, at least right now, he thinks that she's big. But I think, as what we've just read right now, right? If God is truly our highest ideal, shouldn't God be our babe? Right? So how do we put the Lord first and foremost in our lives? Well, again, because of our will, it requires a decision to obey Him. In John chapter 14, verse 15, it says, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." And this being the first commandment, right? We should love God above everything else. So we need to develop a personal relationship with Him. A lot of times when we invite couples or families to Couples for Christ, a lot of times they're initially looking for married topics. It's like how to treat my spouse, how to treat my wife, how to submit to my husband, and those are good things. And I'm not kidding. There are so many formation teachings in Couples for Christ. But then again, we've designed this program, we've designed this ministry so that we kind of all start back to the basics in really learning the basic foundations of our faith, so then that we as individuals develop that personal relationship with God first. Because really, if you think about it, that's what we bring into our marriage. And so then if we bring that to our marriages, that's what we bring into our families, to our children. And really, if we have it in our family, then we have that relationship with God in our family. That's truly what we bring into our communities, to our parishes. And that's what we do. Not just going along, going through the flow of Catholic practices, right, that we learned through our parents maybe as a child or through Catholic education. Again, that's just the kind of like a little bit of a sneak peek of what's ahead of you. So we should be with God at all times. We need to talk to Him. We need to hear His voice. No trip should be too long, or no task too tedious, no obstacle too difficult to be with our beloved, right? I mean, with our loved ones, we have no problem when we have to go, visit our families and friends, our loved ones somewhere else. We don't complain. We go because we love Him. Same thing with our God. Again, put Him first and foremost whenever we're doing things. We should spend regular time, just as we spend regular time with our spouse, with our families, with our loved ones. We need to spend time with our God to develop that personal relationship in prayer and in scripture reading as well. So Jeff and I have been part of Couples for Christ for 10 years now, and we have had many opportunities to pray and progress in our faith. This CLP is merely a sneak peek, my brothers and sisters. And so that's loving God, right, with all our heart. So loving God with all our mind and our soul. How do we do that? How do we love God with all our mind and all our soul? Well, we love God with all our mind and soul by keeping our mind clean and holy. So how do we do that? How do we do that? Well, our mind should be free and pure of impure thoughts. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 28, it says, "But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." The evil is so quick, isn't he? When our minds are idle, or when we're not vigilant in protecting our minds. And so we have to be, again, because we have that will, we have to consciously make that effort to remove ourselves from situations where we feel we're going to